Live. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 143 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable. I am your host, Wade Finnegan, and I am joined tonight by Krishan Keller-Hanna.
Hello everyone.
And staying with the three names, Robert Chazz Chute is with us tonight too.
Hi everybody.
Our special guest this evening is Dan Wood. Now, Dan Wood is from a nice little company called Draft2Digital, and if you don't know who they are, where the heck have you been? But anyway, he's the Director of Operations and Author Relations for Draft2Digital. He's been in some tech-type stuff for quite some time, done some stuff with energy industry, but, we brought him on for the important stuff, to talk about ebooks and how to get them out there and what all he can do for us as authors. So, Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I've been looking really forward to this conversation because I want to get some insights. But for those that, like I say, I don't know how they possibly couldn't know, but if they don't know what Draft2Digital is, can you give us a brief synopsis of what you guys do?
Yeah, we built a platform to help independent authors publish their books, and so part of that is that we have conversion software. So if you don't have formatted digital books yet, you can bring us a Word file, and we can convert that. Generally, it takes authors about 10 minutes the first time they set up a book and go through our process. You get to see a sample of that digital book and then see if it looks good or not. Then we can help you distribute it and manage it at a wide number of retailers.
Very cool. So you are a little bit of a middleman, if you will, but maybe taking off some of the pressure and guesswork that a lot of us authors have with the different platforms.
I've used
we do kind of obviously there are some of the places you can go to directly, but there are others where you can't, and so we have contracts with multiple different retailers. We don't have any hidden fees or upfront fees. We do everything. When an author makes money is when we make money. Which ends up being about 10% of the retail list price is the cut that we take out of the author's royalties. So authors get about 60% of the retail list price.
Nice. Robert, what you were going to say?
I was going to jump in and just say that I've used Draft2Digital, and of all the platforms that I've ever uploaded to, I think Draft2Digital is probably the easiest user interface I've ever seen. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
I like easy.
Yeah.
Go with that where you will, but
and I'm going right past it to the next question.
Good job, Krishan.
Eating right past.
Yes. How did you get involved with Draft2Digital?
So the founders were all friends of mine. One of them I went to high school with and was our friend who always wanted to be an author, and that kind of led to why we built Draft2Digital. Was back in around 2010, he started looking at self-publishing and was not happy with all of the hoops you had to jump through to get your book converted into a Mobi and into an EPUB. So he asked some of his programmer friends to help him with that, and a couple of years later they were like, we could probably make a company doing this, and that's what they did. So I came in about a year after they had opened up the doors and got involved with the operations side of things and just getting all of the books, flowing through the system and everything, and looking for new sales channels. And that's kind of evolved to I still do a little bit of that, but for the most part now I work directly with authors on stuff like merchandising. I'm doing a lot of work on finding new sales channels and going to tons of conferences. So.
Cool.
Yeah, that's how we met.
Because, where did you guys meet, Krishan?
We met at the Smarter Author Summit. Actually, we met at a cafe in a bowling alley a couple of days before. Because one of the things that we did was a lot of folks were like, hey, you want to meet up? I'm flying in early. And we said yes. And you remember Michael Anderley. He was on one of our blabs, and he'll be with us next week. He got a group together, and so it was Scott King, Dan, Amy Teagan, and myself, and we just kind of converged on this great little place in a bowling alley, and we talked shop, and it was absolutely great. So that's how we met. But it's him going to conferences after conference after conference.
Nice. Networking is very important.
It really is.
And didn't you get on a plane to Austin and go right on the plane to London after that?
I drove down to Austin just because with us being based in Oklahoma, it was a quick drive down for me, and I had friends about halfway in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But like about 4 or 5 days later, I got on a plane and went to the London Book Fair, which was amazing and really cool. But yeah, it was a little bit exhausting going from one conference to another. But I had a lot of fun. I met a ton of great people.
Great. And when we're talking about Draft2Digital, there are other platforms out there that does the same thing. And so what was missing for authors that you and your friends saw that Draft2Digital addresses? What makes you the better platform?
One of the really big things that we saw was converting a Word document into a digital book should not be very difficult. It shouldn't take a manual that's hundreds of pages and make authors go in and have to edit their Word documents constantly. So we were able to we have some of the most brilliant programmers working for us. They were able to just look into the different data that underlies a Word document and how to best change that over into an EPUB and into a MOBI file. One area we saw lacking, and we still feel like is lacking in the industry, is customer service. I would say most of publishing industry, you can be waiting for weeks or days to get a response on the email, and so we wanted to make sure we gave the best customer service, and so we try to get back to people within one business day at the very most, and a lot of times it's within about an hour or two during normal business hours. We also offer a phone support so that people can call during the work week. It's U.S. time, but we provide a toll-free number, and a lot of authors take advantage of that. We thought it was very important to try to make sure we could report daily estimates to authors so they could know how they're doing, and so to kind of get that from all the different vendors. And so you can see, is this promotion I'm doing going well? Are people downloading the book? And then also we pay out monthly. We thought that was very important and kind of a bar that Amazon had set, so we wanted to make sure that we were able to do that. Now we've kind of evolved to where we're building a lot of tools to help authors save time. And so something we do that, we're sort of we're still the only aggregator that allows you to set different prices for different currencies. That's something that you can do direct at KDP. Cobra Writing Life allows you to do that, and iTunes allows you to do that. But we allow it for everywhere that we go, and so you can make sure that your pricing is set so that you've got a price that looks appealing to a customer in the UK, for instance. It's just not the rounded, converted price from the US. That also lets you, if you know a market can support a lower price, you can price your book down in that market to be more competitive. Or in some markets like Canada or Australia, you can raise your price a little bit since they can bear a higher price. We've also just recently built a tool that allows us to, authors can choose to have us generate their also by page. And what that does is we will list all of your other books that you have at the end of your ebook and give links to each of the different retailers. Like we send each retailer a version that's catered to them, so that the Apple version has Apple links. So if the person clicks on the next book in the series, it's going to take them with one click to where they can purchase the next book from Apple. And that same book will go out to Barnes & Noble with Barnes & Noble links. So
wow,
it can save a lot of time if authors are doing that manually themselves.
That's nice.
That's amazing. That's really innovative.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that the other platforms should be copying if they aren't already, but I don't think they are right now.
Yeah.
It's technically challenging. Yeah. And something else that we just released and we're still fine-tuning is new release notifications, which is very similar to what Amazon released, I believe, towards the end of last year, where we found that even though we preach to authors to have their own email list, there's still a lot of authors that don't. And so we've got it to where an author can choose to include a link at the back of their book, and we will run a notification for anytime they release a new book. We will send out a link at whichever retailer that particular reader came in from to that new book whenever the book comes out. And so we feel like that's a great step towards making sure everyone's following at the bare minimum best practice, and we're really hoping we can kind of evolve that more to do more to make handling your own email list easier.
So will authors be able to export that list?
Yeah.
Currently, they can't. We think we should be able to do that. We just have to figure out all the legal parts of it. But it's something we're working on.
Nice. Your fanboys have started to show up. John L. Monk says a big hello to Dan, and the greatest feeling ever is when he told me that that John had gotten the Nook Free Friday promotion, resulting in a ton of sales and a nice tail. Nice.
And that's something else we do that I know only a handful of other distributors do, and that's the merchandising angle of it. When you look at the different business models for people that work and help indie authors, you can tell a lot by how they make their money. And so like us and Smashwords both depend on authors selling books for us to make any money. And so we have incentive to try to promote our authors' books. And so we are constantly nominating books for promotions at Apple, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and we're starting to, with some of the smaller channels, they're starting to realize the value of promoting indie books, because indie authors talk a lot about promotions when they go on. They send out links to their fans, and so it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you select the people you're pushing for merchandising with those platforms?
So it's a mix of, I use the aggregate data so I can see if someone already selling well at another one of our channels. So like if their book is doing very well at Apple, but really hasn't found its readership at Barnes & Noble, we'll choose some of those books. Some of it's people that I meet at conferences, and when I learn their story, we're building out tools to better identify when books are doing well at Amazon, so that we know this author can move books. But it's basically, we try to find books that are very, very likely to succeed, have credentials of some sort. The author is a USA Today bestseller, or has a we've worked with people that have Kindle Worlds and are just now going wide. And so we kind of look for those kinds of stories, and a lot of it is just people I meet at conferences emailing, reaching out to me, reminding me what their books are about. We mostly focus on series right now because that's what most of our retailers are interested in, and just letting us know when they've got a new promotion going on or they've got a new book coming out.
Interesting.
So I don't know if we listed at the top of the show there, but how many platforms do you currently distribute to?
So it's 8 platforms that get you into hundreds of different digital bookstores. It's Apple iBooks, Barnes & Noble Nook, Kobo, CreateSpace, which is print on demand, which we help a lot of people set up the print on demand book, because CreateSpace can be very finicky, and we have people that have set up over 1,000 books at CreateSpace now. 24 Symbols, which is a subscription service. It's been around since I think 2012 or 2013, that has aimed at the Spanish-speaking markets, and so they're based out of Spain, and then they aim at like Spain and then Latin American countries. Tolino, which is an alliance of German bookstores. So they are the old school bookstores there, like the equivalent like Barnes & Noble and Borders were here in the U.S. And instead of each one of them trying to compete against Amazon separately, they all banded together and made one digital platform. They release a device called the Tolino, which is like a Kindle. It's an e-reader. They have Tolino apps, but you can go, there's not like a Tolino website, but you can go to any one of their websites and buy a Tolino book, and it'll be usable on that device, on the app, regardless of which store you bought it at. And they have started expanding into other parts of Central Europe, like Italy and Austria, so that's exciting. And we've seen huge growth with that channel. It's mostly going to be German language books that sell, like, are outliers that sell very well. Some indies have started doing translations into German, but there are also a lot of German readers that read in English, and so it's a good place to be. After that, we go to Inkterra, which is kind of a smaller platform. It used to be called Page Foundry. And I think that, Scribd. We go to Scribd, which is the other subscription service here in the U.S.
And of all those foreign markets, what would you say the breakdown is as far as English authors trying to market English books versus English authors trying to market translated books?
For the most part, it's English books. Yeah, it's I would say it's almost 99%. We've seen a lot of the romance authors have started expanding into translations. German is probably, after English, German is where most people should consider their first translation. It's probably the market with the most ebook readers after English. We've seen romance can do very well in Italy and in France. We've also seen, like, fantasy has started. We've seen some translations in fantasy into German, so that's exciting. We do about 69% of our sales are in the U.S., but the 31% is the rest of the world. Australia would be our next strongest after the U.S., which always surprises me, and then the U.K. and Canada.
I'm a little bit surprised that with population, there isn't a larger Spanish-speaking component to that breakdown.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think the Spanish market has been in flux because of their economic conditions in Spain itself. I've heard a lot of the people I've spoken to, like, who've been around that market more, say that there's kind of a transition right now where more of it used to be kind of like New York and London are to English literature. Spain used to be like the heart of Hispanic speaker or people speaking Spanish, and now it's moving more towards Mexico. So it's interesting to see the changes.
Well, we've talked about language differences, and I think you mentioned Canada has a higher price tolerance where you can price your books a little bit higher. What are the varied price differences across your major markets?
I would say Canada and Australia are used to spending a little bit more, and so indie authors can typically move their prices up a little bit and still sell very well. The UK is a lot more competitive, so it's one where you might want to lower your price. Right now, Koba is really the only good way we have to get into India right now, but India is another market where you would want to go towards the lower end of price because print books are so cheap there. We are looking for other channels in India because that's an exciting market. There's a lot of English speakers there. I'd say those are the main ones. The German market is probably on par pricing-wise with the U.S.
That's interesting. I think on Joanna Penn's show she mentioned that I think it was like 100 rupees or something. It was much lower price than in India than what would normally be the suggested retail price if you look at the Amazon pricing page.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just print books are so cheap over there. I think that's the major reason that it's like driven it down in those prices. And if you look at things like the KU subscription price in India is way below the KU prices everywhere else, and it's to try to build that market, I believe.
But with so many English speakers, I think of the other market that I'm wondering when it will explode will be China. Any thoughts on that?
There's more China. There's more people in China that speak English than just about anywhere else. The problem really is the politics in the region. It's very, very difficult to get English books into China, period, because of the censorship laws that they have. If that ever changes, it could be really great for everyone. I think I know, just following the news myself, that they are starting to build a strong culture of self-published authors who have found success within China. How long it's going to be before they open up to foreign books is, who can say? Like right now, it's mainly aimed at British publishers and traditional publishing.
Well, as long as we're talking about different markets, the other aspect I'd be curious to hear you speak on is with covers, whether it be censorship or just a matter of taste. What do you think the variances are across the book cultures?
So I think the cover question is a fascinating one. Like it's one where traditional publishing is quite common. You'll have a different cover. In a lot of cases, you would even see a UK grammar version of the book versus a US grammar version of the book. Traditionally, like you would go with much more conservative covers for the UK and a lot of parts of Europe, like Germany. Australia and US have very similar tastes for like romance. For instance, you want to have a shirtless guy more or less on most romance covers. That's not the case in the UK, but it's very difficult. Like none of the platforms are set up right now where it's easy to send one cover to one region and one cover to another. And so you would have to, as an indie author, you would have to split it up and have two different versions of the book, which of course splits your reviews some. So right now it's not easy as an indie author to do. I'm very curious, author earnings. It was about 6 months ago. They did a look at the UK market on Amazon specifically, and they found that indie authors were outselling traditionally published books that were following all the best practices. Like, kind of the theory was that if you found someone in the UK market to publish your book, they know the market, so they know how to advertise, they know how to cover it right, they know all the different stuff, and their data didn't really seem to reinforce that notion. And so I kind of wonder, with social media and everything and the concept of branding, is it not better just to have the same cover everywhere? Because when you're tweeting about it, you certainly can't control exactly which tweet goes to what country. So just some of my theories. Yeah.
Well, I've even heard people say, if you're going to have a crime thriller set in the UK, don't put a gun on the cover, where it would sell better in the US. I'm not sure there's something behind that.
I've heard that too. I'm just not sure. Like I think it's traditionally people have thought that you need to go very conservative for the UK. I'm just not sure as the world changes that is as true.
Good point. Out of the platforms, what's your best performers, and what advice do you give to authors on where they should focus their attention? Obviously, there's one that we'll talk about here probably momentarily, but the rest.
Definitely for us, we don't distribute to Amazon. Apple is our #1 sales channel. They have just continued to grow, especially after sometime last year is when they added the iBooks application by default to all of the iOS devices and all of the Macs out there. And so since then we've seen remarkable growth. We're seeing more and more people reading on their phones. It's a really good Wall Street Journal article that I encourage people to Google about the rise of reading on mobile. So as more and more people are reading on their phone, while they're on the bus or on subway, or they're sitting and waiting for their kids at practice, all those different things, we think Apple will especially grow and continue to grow. Barnes & Noble has been our second strongest channel since the beginning. It's always been Apple and Barnes & Noble. We have watched, as indie authors have watched, the the earnings reports that Barnes and Noble does every so often. And while their digital sales have been going down, ours have not. Ours have been steadily about the same. We think a lot of the Barnes and Noble readers are beginning to get to know the indie authors' names and seeing the value. A lot of the indie authors have the free first in series, and that can be such a huge part of gaining new readers. After that, it's Kobo for us, and they're probably our fastest growing channel. While they didn't start off at the levels that Barnes & Noble and Apple did, they just continue to grow very quickly. And then Scribd and Tolino are about tied for us right now, and they continue to. Tolino's been growing fairly steadily. Scribd has kind of had some ups and downs with some of the changes they made to our platform, but it is really starting to kind of steady out now. So.
Nice. And are those are all those platforms like in agreement with you to give a certain percentage, or how do you, or does Draft2Digital take care of all that for us, so we just know that we get the one check that's...
Yeah, so they pay us and then we pay you. Right now, all of our current agreements, you're going to get about 60% of the retail list price for every sale. With the subscription services, the sale is going to be after they've read. It's between 10 and 20%. I think I don't remember exactly which contracts are which, but so if someone reads through your book and gets past what they would get past reading a sample, you're going to get paid as though it was a full buy.
One thing I noticed when I was doing some stuff with Draft2Digital was if I wanted to change a price on a platform, it seemed like the turnaround time on getting that platform, that price change, was actually pretty quick compared to, say, some other platform I won't mention. Smash words. So my question is, what is the turnaround time as far as if I, because a lot of times we're trying to coordinate and get something, our first novel free across one platform, so we can then get it to go to free on KDP and so on.
So it's going to vary by the different channels. For the most part, it's going to be within 24 hours, and in fact, so I'd say about half our channels, it's probably going to be within 3 to 4 hours tops.
Wow.
Barnes & Noble is next business day. They just process the files in a different way. We go in through a different system than Note Press. We go in through the same system as the traditional publishers. And so we send them a bunch of files. They process them the next morning, excluding the weekends and holidays. And so that can kind of, depending on if you submit something on a Friday, it's going to be about 4 days. If you do it on Monday, it's going to be that same 24-hour type scenario. Also with Barnes & Noble, setting things to free at Barnes & Noble is a manual process for them, and so it can add another day or so.
And your payment options are different as well. I know you mentioned it works out to the author getting 60%, but what's the setup as far as getting the checks or the PayPal or whatever?
So 60%, and that includes under $2.99 and over $9.99. So that's a benefit for a lot of authors. We pay via PayPal, direct deposit, both domestic and international, which that's by far our most popular choice and the fastest. PayPal payments tend to take us an extra 3 or 4 days because we have to transfer the money to PayPal, and then they have to verify it, and then they send it out. We also have pay out via check. So we have some people that just want to get a check, generally due to concerns with conversion fees and stuff like that.
But how often, Dan?
Monthly. We pay monthly.
Okay. Yes, I think anybody with some experience with other platforms will find that other platforms that are similar to your services tend to stretch out those payments quite a lot longer than monthly, though. So that's awesome. Nice to hear.
Yeah, most of the other ones are quarterly, and we just thought, Amazon can pay monthly, we can pay monthly.
Good on you. Good to hear it.
Yes. So why don't we address that big old elephant in the room? Well, maybe that big South American river in the room.
Yeah, why is that, Dan?
So, yeah, at one point we did distribute to Amazon. We approached them multiple times about getting a normal contract, and we're really only allowed to publish through the KDP portal, which is, as most authors know, very automated. You just get emails that are sometimes bewildering. We were treated as though we were an author, even though at the time we were distributing thousands of books. And so they have basically you get so many strikes and you're out. Well, we had things that we had taken care of where they had missed the emails and wouldn't respond when we asked them about them. And so that's kind of what happened. There's things we were trying to coordinate with them on, like, for instance, if they had banned an author, we had no way of knowing that the author had been on KDP and banned. So people, there's a lot of shady people out there would come to our platform and then try to get back onto Amazon. And so, again, we tried to take care of it as quickly as we could once Amazon notified us, but it was always kind of after the fact. So that kind of fell through. We continue to talk to them. We would love to offer them as a place for authors to distribute, because we would love to really be an all-in-one place where you can go to one portal and do everything. But Amazon doesn't really want to work with aggregators, and big reason why you don't see them with partnerships with most of the different aggregator services. So
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I am a new author. My stuff just came onto that big South American river in pre-order, right?
Right.
Because it is a truism, I guess, that when you're starting out, you stay narrow. But let's say in 3 months, I want to go wide. I want to work with you, right? What would you suggest that folks of us who are just starting out and want to go wide and go wide initially quickly, what do you suggest we do?
I definitely recommend, there's a wide variety of setups we see authors come in with. What I would say don't do is don't just give us one book and kind of try to test the waters, because there's very little we can do with one book. Especially, there's a lot of readers that won't read an author's books until they get 2 or 3 books out there. It's a very common buying pattern. And so, I do recommend, if you're a new writer, write in series, at least until you get your name known, because it's going to make your life a lot easier. So write in series, get to the point where you've got a series, like 3 books, basically, and then that's a place where it's much easier for us to merchandise, and then, all the
Oh, we lost Dan.
things.
Oh, there it is.
Am I back?
You cut out there, Dan.
Sorry.
You're back, though.
So what I was saying was, reach out to your distributor and make sure they know your success on Amazon. If you've got a lot of reviews, let them know. Help them know how to best sell your work to the merchandisers at the different stores. We highly recommend a free first in series. It's one of the best ways to get known on the other platforms. And a BookBub, obviously that's kind of, well, if you can get it, it's always great advice. But especially if you are just coming off of being exclusive, BookBub can be a great way to get to know the readers at the different platforms. And BookBub has said that they give preference to books that are available wide over books that are just exclusive.
That's some serious stuff we all have to think about. Because I know a lot of people who are still all in with Amazon, and I make most of my money off Amazon now. I've been narrow for quite a long time because of that. But I do feel like the time has come, and I am beginning to do the big migration. It's daunting.
Yeah, it is, and there are some genres that just aren't, where that aren't as well developed at other platforms, and so it can be a very scary proposition. And in the short term, you probably will make less money, but in the long term, you will have diversified and spread out your risk of not knowing what Amazon's going to do, and with the very small window of time that they give you when they make a change. And I believe the last KU change was about a 2-week and notice to authors. The changes to the KE and PC count was like a day, if I remember correctly. So, it's hard to build a business when your business partner isn't talking to you about changes they're making.
That's not a partnership.
No.
That's you talking to yourself.
Yeah. So, do you? I mean, this might be anecdotal, but do you have some things where you've seen authors go wide right away and still be very successful? Because most people that we bring on the show, they suggest, go Amazon first and then build out, as Krishan was just mentioning. Do you have some anecdotal or evidence that maybe that's not necessarily the best way to go always?
I don't think that's horrible advice right now. Most of the authors I know, they're doing very, very well, and have reached that point where Amazon is 50% or less of their income. They have been wide for a very, very long time. So just going there, remember, it's a completely different audience. Likely they haven't heard about you from Amazon. So if you're just exclusive on Amazon, you're just not getting that recognition or branding, and people want to see that your cover and your name over and over before they're comfortable buying your product generally. So we have seen, we've worked with people. I worked with someone that had a Kindle World, but really wanted to move on and see like her readership that she could find in other places. And hers, she had a ton of books. She put some money into Facebook advertising. BookBub right around the right time. She started hitting the USA Today bestseller list pretty much within a month or two of going wide because she was very focused on it. Not all authors are going to be able to do that, but in this case, it really worked out well. I think especially romance and mysteries and thrillers are very well developed genres at the other retailers. It's something that if you're writing in those areas, I would really, really consider going wide as soon as you can. If you are a brand new author and you have one book out, it probably doesn't ultimately matter what you like, if you go wide or if you go exclusive. Like the things that matter in that case, if you're brand new and writing a book, I would say plan on writing a series, start capturing, set up an email list somewhere, start capturing the emails. And stick in your genre for a little while until your name gets known. Don't just hop around as a new author.
Well, I know you're recommending series, but I'm curious if you feel that if you did serialized fiction as opposed to just a series, break it up into, say, 10,000-word chunks, as an example. Do you think that is even more advantageous than just doing a series?
So I have seen some authors be very successful with serials. I would not say 10,000 words. I would say, I want to say 25,000 is where I've seen people be successful. There are some advantages to that. In that case, I think it's knowing your audience and knowing your readers. This particular author, part of what you do with serials is you tend to write cliffhangers, and there are audiences that love cliffhangers, and there are audiences that hate cliffhangers. And so, if you can get away with it, it is very advantageous because it gives you a lot of books and product more quickly than you would otherwise have.
Interesting.
I don't think, right now, I don't think you could do a fantasy serial because fantasy readers are still in the mindset of the great big tomes that you could kill someone with. If you drop it on their head.
120,000, 140,000 words.
Yes. Whereas
Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, definitely. Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings is a perfect example of that. Whereas romance readers are much more used to buying the kind of the smaller, quicker reads and don't always hate. I mean, there are some romance readers that hate cliffhangers, but it's much more common there.
Does Draft2Digital have any book length limits or genres that they won't accept or anything?
So we have no restrictions on that whatsoever, on genre-wise. We do have some of our partners have restrictions on genres, and so we have a content review system. We make sure that if someone doesn't want erotica, for instance, that we don't send it to them. But we do it on a case-by-case basis for each vendor. So there are some vendors that accept everything. There are some vendors that will allow you to submit erotica as long as it's labeled as erotica, because they're making sure the wrong eyes don't see it. We don't accept public domain because public domain is a huge pain in the butt. Primarily because international law varies. Like when we started off, we accepted public domain. Well, what's in the public domain in the U.S. It's not necessarily in the public domain in the U.K. or in Canada, and you don't know. It's such a hassle to track it down that we eventually stopped accepting public domain works. Really, that's the only restriction we have on content. The length, we don't have any. There's a practical limit to length that would be the size of the file. But I think the lowest restriction on that is like 50 megabytes, and so that can be a very, very large book as long as you don't have a ton of pictures in it. The other way, like if it's too short, there are a lot of vendors that won't accept it if it's just a page or two of content.
Okay. Kate Morgan in the chat asks, what other platforms is D2D planning on adding to their roster?
So I've been working a lot on trying to figure out the library market. I would really love to go to some of the library vendors. Overdrive's big on my list. It's difficult because just getting into the Overdrive system is one thing, as opposed to actually selling books to librarians is another. And so trying to figure out how to do that effectively, because I don't feel like there's the other places where you can get into Overdrive are doing that very well yet. There's a couple of new players like Hoopla and different services that are trying different models for the library that I'm looking at and very interested in. We're also looking at adding as many international vendors as we can. We think international is just in a great place right now to set up a foundation, because right now, like ebook adoption rates in the U.S. and the U.K. are somewhere around 30%. The rest of the world is like under 10%, and so there's so much opportunity. And we think that as more and more people are getting mobile phones, they have access now to the internet through the mobile phone. That's probably their only internet access they have. A lot of them couldn't afford e-readers, for instance, like just as a standalone device. So we think we're going to see a lot of growth in digital books being sold in the rest of the world. So any of those vendors that can realistically operate and make changes at the speed that indie authors have to have, because Amazon is kind of a stickler for making sure they always have the lowest price, and that you're not listed somewhere else if you're exclusive with them. So we're talking to a lot of different vendors. There are, like, I would say the big ones left. I would love to distribute to Google Play. We're talking to them constantly, especially now that they've absorbed part of the staff from Oyster. Mm-hmm. We're really trying to help them understand why their random discounting policy is really bad for indie authors. And we'd really love to be able to distribute there. We have a great system for managing both content, but we also do a lot of rights audit, that we've kind of developed great software to make sure that an author is legitimate and giving us a book that's not just copied from Wikipedia or someone else's work. And those are things that Google was having issues with, and we think we'd be a great partner for them.
academia seems to have figured out the whole plagiarism thing. You have the search where you check and see, is this original paper? Why is it so difficult for Google to fix this? They're Google.
I think it's just their priorities right now. There's so much more money for them in like mobile games and video, and so a lot of their efforts have gone towards that.
Okay, so they've got 3 technicians, is what you're saying.
I think it's just it's such a small amount of their revenue that they just haven't focused on it. You would think they would have the best search engine for their bookstore in the world, and yet it's ironically probably one of the worst ones. Once they take it seriously, I think they could be a huge competitor for the same reason that Apple's doing so well, because there are a ton of people who have Android phones out there.
I think Google came out in the last week or two saying something to the effect, it was a really wishy-washy kind of, well, we're not saying we're not going to bring Google Books back. We're not saying we aren't either. It made me feel like, okay, that's a write-off because they just aren't prioritizing it. Like, it's not important enough to them, and it is important to other platforms. So my personal take on it was, okay, well, screw you.
I feel like they've approached it like a checklist item to having a complete platform, as far as media is concerned. But they haven't focused on it nearly as much as they did on music. I remember when they really started being very competitive in the music sales industry, right before all of the streaming services really took off. So.
But Google's been off because of the piracy issue for, I think it's been over a year now, isn't it?
At least 9 months, and it could be. It seems like it was less than a year, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think we're coming up on the anniversary of the great stoppage.
Yes, we're very close. If we haven't passed it already. Having the platform, getting the books out there are great. What about the marketing? I know that a lot of Draft2Digital, and what makes it so attractive is the fact that there is a human touch, and is very flexible and very responsive to the author. But how does it fit in the overall plan? Once again, newbie author, and want to get the most bang for my buck, but also want to be as effective as I possibly can without shelling out the 1 or 2 large for the book club. How does Draft2Digital work into all of that?
So we don't do any direct marketing per se, but we do the merchandising angle of it, and through our customer support, we end up offering a lot of advice and to authors. And, we frequently have authors writing in to ask us, is this a legitimate service to use? Is this particular ebook email effective or not? Because we get some of that feedback from our authors, so we kind of know what works and what doesn't. On the merchandising end, it's just a matter of we try to make sure we let our authors know the best ways, the things that are going to make them most likely to be picked by the different platforms, and make sure we think every indie author should have that free first in series for at least 1 book. Have a bundle of your books available, because there will frequently be promotions that revolve around having a bundle, and so that just makes you eligible for one more thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
How responsive are you to promotional pricing? I know we talked about how you can change your pricing, but are there structures in place or going to be in place to be able to do your own, pardon the term, countdown deals or things like that, or is that something you take care of?
So right now it's just us having a fast system is the way we work with that, and for the most part it works out very, very well. We have built out the infrastructure on the back end to set promotional pricing around dates. We're waiting on one of our vendors to be able to support it. The rest of them support it already, and so that's going to let you say, from this date to this date, I want my price to be 99 cents, and then I want it to return to the original price. So that's something we were hoping to have rolled out a little while ago. We've still been waiting. We've got a couple ideas maybe that we can make it work without the waiting on anyone. But right now we're still kind of giving them a little bit of time.
Have you ever considered setting up a catalog, much like Smashwords has, so D2D becomes more of a destination site for selling from a catalog straight from your site?
Not at all, really. Obviously, we've considered it. We just think it's not a great business model. We would then have two sets of customers we'd be trying to appeal to, readers and authors. And to some extent, you can also think of our sales channels as our customers too, because we're trying to make things as easy as possible for them. So we don't want to compete with them at all. It's very difficult to splitting all of that time and energy to try to build a good sales platform, and it's very difficult to compete with Amazon or any of the competing players right now to build something better than what they have. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think we are privately funded. We built ourselves up. With venture funding, we might have thought about it at one point, but it's very expensive to build a really, really good top of the line store and then get people there and get people to trust it. I could see we continue to watch all the players in direct sales to consumers, and we think that might be something good in the future, and so we're watching that.
Kate Morgan had a question from the site. She wants to know if you can set pre-orders on Draft2Digital.
You can, yes. We can do pre-orders at iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Tolino. At iBooks, you can set them up to a year in advance. Tolino, a year in advance as well. Kobo, I believe, 6 months in advance. And Barnes & Noble is about 90 days in advance, although if you contact us, we can generally get them to set one up for longer than 90 days. We can do that both with a manuscript or without the manuscript. And so you can go to our website and go to the first page where you go to add a book, and you set a future release date, and it will let you move on without adding a manuscript if it's in the future and far enough out. And then we'll email you as you get closer to your release date, reminding you that we need your final manuscript.
Nice, excellent. You just kind of basically started to mention some of this, but I wanted to kind of know what Draft2Digital's long-term plans are. You kind of talk a little bit about that with the storefront and not necessarily doing that, but I know kind of two-part on that. So if an author puts all their effort into your company, is there any assurance that you guys are going to be doing this for quite some time and along down the road? And maybe what also like some customer loyalty to you guys would pay off for them in the future?
Yeah, we are moving towards. We think we're at a very beginning portion of the digital revolution. There's a lot of the traditional industry pundits. They're like, oh, the digital revolution has stopped, or it's stabilized. We're at a new normal. We're really not. We are building towards that foundation for international sales, because it's going to be a bigger and bigger part of our lives. I very much believe that while we'll always have physical books around, and there'll be people that still prefer to read in print, it's just going to continue to diminish in the same way that CDs and records diminished. Or CDs is probably a good comparison. When digital music became such an easy thing, between convenience and price, it's just really hard to compete with digital. So we are building out that system to be a player long-term in the industry. You look at a lot of other companies that are venture funded, that the ultimate goal is for them to get acquired, or their investors are trying to make money. Well, we're not doing that. We're reinvesting our profits into our company to build something bigger and better. And really, as we watch publishing change, it's going to be different than anything that's out there right now. And we don't know exactly what direction that's going to take, but we continue to try to make sure we're arguing for really, really good terms for authors. And obviously, we have a great legal contract with authors, like our terms of service. You keep all your rights, and so at any point in the future, if you decide, what, Draft2Digital is not competing or not doing what I want, you can delist from us and list somewhere else. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and options.
Excellent. That hit my question list. Did you guys have some other ones? We are coming up on the top of the hour already. This has gone by fast. But
I wondered if we could just double back for a sec, because I didn't quite understand about your email program. Could you walk me through that and unpack how that works exactly?
So it's like they have at Amazon. They do it on their webpage where someone can subscribe to an author.
So like a follow button?
Right. So we have an option on the same. In our process, we have a page where you can choose different metadata for us to add to your book. It's one of the options. You can have us include the new release notification to the back of the book. And so it adds like a page at the back of the book that lets a reader choose, I want to subscribe to this author and hear anytime they have a new release. So it becomes, in effect, kind of like an email list, or the minimum viable thing you would want to do with an email list, which is notify them when you have a new book. It also records where that came from, so if they clicked on it and joined from the back of an iBook, from a book they bought on iBooks, it would give them the iBooks link. It does, at the bottom, it lets them choose their platform, like if they want to switch platforms in the future, it will let them do that. We are looking at that and making sure that we can release those emails to authors, or give them a mechanism to ask those readers to join their own email list once they have one set up. But in a way, it can also be thought of as it can be in addition to, so you can have like them ask them if they want to join your mail list, but also have that in case there are people, some people that don't want to join every individual author's email list and get newsletters and everything, but they would like to know when your next book comes out.
That's a really good point, because I got to tell you, I'm so burnt out on subscribing to newsletters. I don't think I'm alone.
I never do. Yeah. There are a lot of authors I love, but I get too many emails, and so while I preach to people, have your own email list, and it is super important, I'm not one of those people subscribing to everyone's email list. So.
Yeah. Well, you have to give them a new puppy in order to get that email.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a lot of puppies, man.
A lot of puppies.
Okay, Krishan, did you have any other questions we missed, or anything from the website?
As the newbie writer here, I'm just so impressed and looking forward to working with you once I get more titles out.
Yeah, as somebody who has a bunch of books out, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I just took all 20-something of all my books and just dumped them right on Dan? And I mean, figuratively.
Yes.
But just imagine how much time you would save, and anytime you run a sale, if you can just go update the price once rather than updating it everywhere and then having to go back and double check and make sure it updated everywhere.
Yeah, there is definitely a convenience factor here, right? That I'm all about paying for convenience. So I mean,
And we do a lot of stuff in the background. Like we audit our sales channels every week to make sure, is the book still up? Is it supposed to be up? Make sure it's up. If it's not supposed to be up, we'll double check and make sure they haven't accidentally relisted it. Because there was a time where there was one particular retailer that just kept accidentally relisting books that had been delisted, and which obviously caused a lot of stress for people who were in exclusive agreements with Amazon at that point. And so we just try to make that it's super easy to list or delist. If you do decide, hey, I want to go try exclusive for a little while, you just delist your book, and then you can come back 90 days later, relist your book, and the only thing you have is your regret that you left.
Oh.
Smooth.
True.
I felt the weight of that guilt. Okay. I have no books out, and I felt that weight. Okay.
And I think we've come to the top of our hour, Wade. I really thank you for talking to us and dropping so much science, Dan. Thank you.
No problem.
Yes, Dan, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. If I was better organized, which I thought I was, but I don't have next week's person. I know it's a mystery writer, but I can't remember who's on next week. But does anybody help me out?
Damn it, Wade!
Yeah. It's a mystery, so
that
will make people like it more.
Tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
There you go.
Maybe Amanda Lee?
Is that who it is? Yeah, okay. Yes. You mentioned that already, didn't you, or did you not? I don't know. Maybe you did. So tune in next week for that. And also Blab this Sunday, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All the news that self-publishers need and authors crave.
There you go. Ooh, I like it. And our promotion's going on, and everything's going really good. So check out selfpublishingroundtable.com. I got a new blog post put up yesterday. Check that out. Can also take a time to leave us a review, Stitcher, iTunes, somewhere. We'd really appreciate it. Of course, we appreciate all our live viewers and with your questions. There will be an after party. I don't know, Dan doesn't know this yet, but if he wants to stick around for a few minutes, you can ask Dan some questions if you want.
Stay tuned for the hard drinking, everybody.
Yes, of course, if Dan agrees to that. So. Oh, yes. But I'll take care of X's exit, as you will, because he's not here tonight. But good night, internets.